Let's welcome Dr. Stan. Dr. Stan, tell us your thoughts about the insoles, and tell us what you think about the insoles and what you felt.
Well, when I started using the insoles, I didn't really have any expectations. I exercise most days, so I went about my usual exercise experience, which is usually doing intervals jogging up a hill. And so jogging is a sort of a generous term. I probably move slower than a jog, but anyway, when I first started doing that hill a few years ago, that was before I had open heart surgery for a valve replacement. And after the valve replacement, my performance dropped significantly. I never really recovered back to where I had been before, but I was happy to be able to move, which was better than I had been just before the surgery. And when when I started to use the insoles that you had sent, I noticed that the time to recovery, since I'm doing intervals, that means that you're going to peak exercise and then you recover before you do the second or the next interval. So the time to recovery is something that I keep track of very carefully, just because I'm interested in that. And my time to recovery had increased probably 20 seconds from where it had been before my heart needed the surgery. And when I had the insoles put in, I remember that I was surprised that I recovered, so-called, to a place where I was breathing without having to breathe hard, at the same level that I'd been before my heart had started to decline from the valve issues that I had. I had a congenital valve defect, and it finally went bad. And when that happened, that's when I needed the surgery. Prior to that happening, I could function pretty well. And then after the surgery, that's when I didn't have the same recovery time. After the insoles, my recovery time went back to the same place it had been before I had any issues with my heart. So that was dramatic to me, because it's a pretty big difference in how long. When you're doing a 1 minute interval, 20 seconds is a pretty big chunk of time off of that minute. So it was remarkable to me. And it persisted. It wasn't like it was a one-time deal. I tried it in different weather conditions, and that recovery time stayed very constant. So that's what I experienced, and it was dramatic. And I remember calling you about it and talking about that, and you had described some other situations where the insoles had been used, but you hadn't really used them very much. You hadn't promoted them very much at that point.
I think you said you had a hill. There's a hill that you remembered a major difference.
Yeah, the hill, sprinting up the hill is my interval. And that was about the same. It didn't help me to sprint up the hill any faster. I was already doing pretty good with that, but how long it took me to catch my breath to recover for the next interval, that's what changed a lot. 20 seconds worth of change is quite a bit of change when you're doing intervals. And for somebody that's old and out of shape like me, that's a pretty big deal. It was definitely not a placebo, because the placebo part could be where you've got some extra emotional energy running up the hill, but recovery is a completely different thing. After you've exhausted yourself and then you recover, when you're recovered, you can breathe again. You can't speed that process up just by thinking about it.